Okay. Welcome back. Phandelver and below, Tales of Argosa. It has been slow going, for sure. But, we're in Phandalin now. We've got level 2 characters. And a level 1 jabroni fighter. He'll do all right, probably. We'll see. So he's not really a full-fledged member of the team. I am still treating him like a henchman, so he does require double the amount of XP to level up, and he does not technically get any money. And like we said, pretty much every penny that he gets, which is a half share that we have to give him, goes back to his family or his bank or whatever. It is not money that we have access to. It's an odd sort of mechanical distinction, I suppose, in order to maintain just like the difference between a player character and a hireling. But I do think it's an important distinction. So we only have 2 characters, and we're sticking with that. And theoretically, I could have a bunch of hirelings. Although I think usually they kind of like to limit it based on charisma. Your charisma mod or something like that. Axe might be a little different. Who's to say? Again, we didn't really even look at the rules. In Tales of Argosa for hirelings. Also, there's the matter of carousing, which is often featured in old school games, and is in Tales of Argosa. So the Tales of Argosa rule is basically you have to spend... So carousing is spending money on like partying or things like that in order to get XP. That's what carousing is usually. And so Tales of Argosa lets you spend 20 gold pieces, and for every 20 gold pieces you spend carousing, you get 1 XP. And there's a limit you can spend per downtime period, so between adventures, basically. And from levels 1 to 3, the most you can get for each downtime period is 5 XP of carousing. And then from 4 to 6, it's 10 XP, and then 7 to 9, it's 20 XP. Okay? So theoretically, every time between adventures, you could spend 100 gold on some big parties and stuff and get an extra 5 XP. Which, at this stage, yes, we could spend 100 gold and get 5 XP, but it's not that big of a factor. I think it's more of a factor if I stuck with the original XP scale, where at this point I would only need 10 more XP to level up to 3, but I've altered the situation. So it's not quite as impactful. And so far, I have not done any carousing in solo gaming, and I have not really introduced it at all when I'm DMing. I am ignoring this rule entirely. I am going to bring it back, though, because I kind of like the idea, and Axe has a system of like XP, an XP fund that you can invest in. So it's similar. You spend a bunch of money, and it's basically spent with no actual purpose. It could be partying, but it could be just like a sacrifice to the gods, or, who knows what. The whole point is that it has no benefit to you mechanically or narratively. It has no purpose other than just spending money, and it's irretrievable. But then in Axe, 90% of the gold that you spend on that fund, 90% of that gets converted to XP for any future characters that you make. So, because it's an XP, it's a gold for XP system. So, say you need 2,000 XP to level up. You could, as a level 4 character, invest like 3,000 gold into this fund, and then your new character, if you ever died, would, rather than starting with 0 XP level 1, would get whatever 90% of 3,000 is, and that's how much XP you'd start with. So it allows you to kind of have a big money sink as an investment, insurance basically, so that you don't start at the bottom of the barrel again if you die. And obviously death is always a possibility. So I have carried over that rule over to Tales of Argosa. It hasn't really come up yet because it's not really something you're going to do at level 1 or level 2 or something. You don't have that much money usually, but eventually it is pretty valuable. Similar rule along with that is the honorary funeral, where if you die, the other players can throw a big honorary funeral for you. Not always. Sometimes, like, it's not an option, you know, to throw an honorary funeral. Like, if your body is not recoverable, or you weren't very honorable, or something. You know, it had some stipulations, I remember, for where you can't throw an honorary funeral. I don't remember where. Heroic funeral, yeah. Adventurers who die unheroically due to their own cowardice, greed, or stupidity, or who are slain while cowering, frightened, faltering, or retreating, cannot benefit from a heroic funeral. Their spirit wanders aimlessly in the gray mists of the underworld. This is left to the judge's discretion, but the intent of the rule is to alleviate the pain of character loss for players who die in heroic fashion to save the lives of their party members, protect innocents, and so on. So yes, there is stipulations there. You might not always deserve a heroic funeral, but if you do, and the other players decide to throw you one, they can spend a certain amount of money, whatever they want, and you get 90% of that as XP for your next character. You can never enter play with more XP than the prior character. But yeah, this could be, you know, if you're high level, you know, you're 9th level or something, and your party's rolling in a lot of money that they're not quite sure what to do with, and you heroically sacrifice yourself, they could certainly spend quite a bit of money to get you back into the game instead of starting at level 2 or whatever, because you neglected to spend on your reserve XP fund. I think it's prudent for everyone to invest in the XP fund rather than just hoping people will throw you a heroic funeral or hoping that you will qualify for a heroic funeral. But these rules I really like, even though I have yet to utilize either of them. I like the concept of them. So bringing that over to Tales of Argosa, we don't use gold for XP directly. So I had to tweak it a little bit, and I really was not sure, like, how much money should I have to put in to qualify. 20 gold to get 1 XP in the fund seems a little light, especially because I don't really want to put a limit on this other than you can't invest more into the fund for XP than you have, you know. So I set it temporarily at 100 gold qualifies you for 1 XP, which is perhaps a little high, because if you invest 1,000 gold into your fund, that means that any character you ever make will start at level 2. I think that's reasonable. I mean, 1,000 gold is quite a bit at this stage of the game, and level 2 is not really that high. But then if you invest, you'd have to invest 3,500 gold And then any character you'd ever make would start at level 3. And that's pretty nice. Starting a new character at level 3, and you get a unique feature right out the gate. I mean, that's pretty good. Obviously, this has yet to come into play, so I really have no idea how it's going to work out in practice. We will see. But then I did also want to have carousing in there, because I like the idea of spending money and throwing away money just to get some extra XP, if that was really important to you, rather than spending the money on many other things that could also be of value. So I figured for every 200 XP you spend when doing these parties, you also get 1 XP for your own character at the moment. So if you throw a massive party, 1,000 gold, you put 10 XP into your reserve fund, but you also get 5 XP right now. Again, it's a drastically higher scale than the carousing section of Tales of Argosa, going from 20 gold to 200 gold for 1 XP. But it's obviously not something that low-level characters are going to be doing. I don't know. It might be too harsh, but it's either that or I left out carousing entirely. So we'll just see how it goes. Doesn't really apply much at all now, and I don't know why I brought this up. I'm sure we were talking about something. Anyways. Let's just move along. So, we're in Phandelver. It's a new day. We have to go back to the cave in order to get all those goods. You know, the many, like, hundreds of pounds of goods. I mean, perhaps I shouldn't have filled out an entire wagon. Perhaps that's 1,600 pounds of crates and barrels and stuff. That is a lot of supplies. But it is implied that they have been ambushing for quite some time. And this has kind of been a plague on the town and stuff. So I guess it's not outrageous to assume. And if you're going to make the 5-day trip from Neverwinter to Phandelver with supplies, I mean, you're probably going to bring quite a bit in one trip. So I suppose it's not obscene. And it's fine. So we need a wagon, and we need something to pull it. And Jabroni is not going to be pulling it. So we're going to need some form of oxen, probably. So if we head back to the equipment section. Let's see here. Draft oxen. 2,000 pounds. 40 gold. Yeesh. We are not going to be able to buy one of those. Not here. Although, remember Thistle. And we were bringing a wagon of supplies here. And there is a wagon here and an oxen that pulled the wagon. So maybe we don't have to buy one. If we go to the Lion Shield Coster, the company here in town that is that owns these goods, we might be able to just tell them, like, hey, we found all your goods in this goblin hideout. We'll go get them for you if you borrow us an oxen and a cart. Actually, it even says if they left the goods but reveal where they can be found, she gives you a 50 gold piece reward and promises to help the adventurers any way she can. Well, that's even better then. Fuck it. We'll just tell her where they are. Alright, we don't even have to go back. Now, if we wanted to steal all the goods, we would have to get our own ox and cart or whatever and deal with all that. But fuck it, I'll take my good deed and my 50 gold. So for doing the good deed, I'm going to give 2 XP. If I had just taken the money, I would have given 1 XP, but we would have gotten more money. So that's kind of the trade-off. But I'm going to give 2 XP to everybody for doing our good deed. And we get 50 gold. I have a lot of copper, and it's really weighing me down. So I want to figure out some way to spend this in order to alleviate myself of this annoying copper. Because we're not really... If we were in Neverwinter, I'd say we could do some money changing and convert it all to gold or even, like, platinum pieces. But out here in Phandalin, they mostly deal in copper. So... we're probably looking to buy something that's like 10 gold. Yeah, if we find something for 10 gold, we know that it's going to be here for sale almost assuredly. And we'd be able to offload 1,000 copper. Just dumping pennies into some guy's, onto his counter. But like I said, I think they mostly deal in copper here, so it's not the end of the world. It's just a lot of coin. So what would we want to buy that's cost 10 gold? It does say here that the lady at the coster, Lenine, she does keep a supply of armor and weapons, all of which are for sale. She worries about Phandalin's safety, however, and won't sell weapons to anyone she thinks might be a threat to the town. I don't think that's us. I think that she's going to help us. She also warns us that the Red Brands are trouble and advises them to avoid the Sleeping Giant Tap House. We're going to get to all the various plots and side quests and stuff available here after I do my long rest, but I just want to offload this copper and get something. So we could buy a weapon or armor. And if we're looking at the 10 gold stuff for weapons, it's pretty much a Morning Star or a Great Axe are the 2 10 gold ones. Or just a normal sword. We wanted to just buy a sword. So a Morning Star is actually... two-handed. It's a two-handed weapon. Interesting. I kind of like Rognan as an axe and shield guy, but maybe he could survive on a two-handed weapon, and we just hand the axe and shield over to Jabroni, who's supposed to be in the back, but as we've seen, it is kind of nice to have a melee weapon available. So, I guess we'll do that. We'll buy the Great Axe. We got a Great Axe. Great Axe. And we will throw the Battle Axe and the shield over to you. Okay, 1d12 damage. -2 initiative. Yeah, it's pretty shitty. I think I have to do that manually. Which does suck. Definitely sucks. Because his initiative's already not great. And that affects the whole team, But it is what it is. Well, wait a minute. Would I rather have the Morning Star? I mean, according to Axe, the Great Axe does 1d10, and the Morning Star does 1d10. The only real difference is the type of damage that it does. Slashing or bludgeoning. And if I go here, we've got a Great Axe. Great Hammer also has the -2 initiative. So if I follow that logic, I mean, we could count it as a heavy mace, I suppose. But, it seems like it's meant to be... I mean, any of these strictly large weapons that are only usable two-handed carry the -2 initiative thing. That's just part of it. You're trading initiative for big damage and big trauma damage. Yeah, because like a heavy mace or something would be 1d8 plus 1 if you two-handed it, compared to 1d12. 1d12 is a little overkill, but it's not terrible. Nah, alright, we'll stick with it. We'll stick with it. Sucks, but it is what it is. Okay, so that's 1,000 copper. Is what we'd spend. So I guess we'll just lop off the 5 here. And we will lop off the 5 here, and that's 1,000 copper. And then I think we still have to carry a dummy coin for each of them. Well, no, he's at 140, 162. He does not need to have any dummy coin items. Good. And then she still has to have one. She's a little bit over. But just one is not the end of the world. Okay. And our ammo roll can go back down to 1. Go back down to 1. Is there anything else that we wanted to buy? I mean, a tent, perhaps. But I think we might want to save money. Yeah, okay. So we're going to do a long rest. We're going to rest for... I mean... It says 7 days in the book. But it also says that if you're in, like, really safe, comfortable location that could be lowered... Recovering at an inn or other safe and comfortable location may reduce the time at the GM's option. I mean, it does say travel is permissible, but the majority of the day must be spent resting. And it has to be in a safe location. So I don't know really where often you'd long rest that's not at like an inn or something. But I guess you could camp out in the woods. If you found, like... Or if you found, like, a little cave. And you could kind of get tucked away into a cave. I'd probably allow you, if you wanted, to camp out for 7 days. But, there would still be random encounter checks, probably, like, once a day. And it says battle or strenuous activity of any kind extends the rest period by 1 day. So that would be a risk you'd take, but if you really all wanted a long rest, it might be your best option. But yeah, I would say if you're at a village like this, Phandelver, and you're in the inn, and it's nice and safe and comfy, 7 days is a little overkill. So I'd probably cut that down to like 4 or 5 days, but we're not really tracking days anyways. So it doesn't matter much. But yes, we can long rest, which we'll just press these buttons. We are back to full everything and good to go. Okay, so now we can go over the various plots and things in Phandelver. You know, it's a very picturesque place. Children playing on the town green and townsfolk tending to chores or running errands. People smiling at us as we approach. Very pleasant place. Okay, so... Yeah, we're hanging out with Sildar, of course, as he recovers and blah, blah, blah. And we're chatting with people throughout the week. And you can see all the important NPCs and stuff. And that's because Phandelver and below places a bit of a greater emphasis on Phandalin, because I guess eventually the place starts to get corrupted and like actually really threatened later. I don't know. I haven't read all the new stuff from Phandelver and below. So it's like really trying to encourage players to care about Phandalin. So we got some rumors that we've heard throughout the week. Darren Ettermath, the Orchard Keeper, is a former adventurer. The bartender also brags about her sister Gwyn, who's a scholar in the city of Neverwinter. Gwyn arrives in town shortly after the characters and becomes a major NPC in later chapters. I think that's entirely new. Freda Gnome Weaver says the Red Brands hassle every business in town except for the Phandalin Miners Exchange. They don't want trouble with Halia Thornton, who runs it. Okay. Lenar, a human miner. Marauders have been attacking trade caravans on the east end of Tribor Trail. Townmaster is looking for someone to run them off. I think goblins are working with the marauders too. Okay. Narth, a human farmer, says that Sister Garel, who oversees the Shrine of Luck, recently left town for a few days and then returned wounded. Pip, Toblin's son, says Carp said he found a secret tunnel in the woods where the Red Brands almost caught him. He also saw weird goblins hanging around. And the innkeeper says Thel Dendrar, a local woodcarver, stood up to the Red Brands a 10-day ago when they came by his shop and bullied his wife. The ruffians provoked a fight and murdered Thel. Several townsfolk saw it happen. The Red Brands grabbed his body, and now his wife, daughter, and son have gone missing. Oh, shit. And they tell us the Red Brands frequent the Sleeping Giant tap house at the east end of town. So this is obviously the primary, like, okay, we really should solve this kind of now, because these are some big troublemakers, and they're not just like local hooligans or something. I mean, they're murdering and kidnapping people in this very small village. So this is a big problem. So as soon as we hear about that and we've recovered, it's like, okay, let's deal with this shit. And they're apparently led by someone named Glassstaff, who might be a wizard, and we're in search of a wizard so we can kill him and take his spellbook. So I think that our first destination is going to be to go to the Sleeping Giant. Yeah. And if the players don't ever really seem to be interested in confronting them or going to the manor where they're located, then, you know, the gang kind of seeks them out and picks a fight with them, which is what I had to do when I DM'd this for my family last time. But yeah, so we're gonna go to the Sleeping Giant. We haven't really been bothered at the Stonehill Inn much. They haven't really caused any big ruckus or anything during our week at the inn, or 5 days at the inn. So now we're gonna seek them out. We're gonna step into the Sleeping Giant. It's a ramshackle tap room at the east end of town. Several disheveled, surly humans linger on the covered porch, perched on empty ale barrels or leaning against the wall. They all wear grimy scarlet cloaks. Their stares are fixed on you as you approach. One of the ruffians spits on the ground. Well, well, he says, here's a whole pack of little puppies. What do you want here, puppies? Come down here to bark at us? Now, it's important not to be lawful stupid. These are murderers, you know. These are hardened criminals, and we can't just be like, you should stop your lawless behavior. You know, we need to go for shock and awe, as always. So I think starting with Thunderclap and just, you know, bamboozle them. It says several of them. 4 of them. are in the encounter. So they do outnumber us, which probably encourages them. And if 3 of them are defeated, the remaining ruffian flees towards Tresendar Manor. So, yeah, we want to... we want to do this kind of surreptitiously. Because we don't want to make it look like we're just casting a big spell at them. So Grognan is going to kind of return their barbs, as it were. He's going to be loud and vocal and draw their attention, you know. And Bertrice is going to cast stealthily. And the Tales of Argosa does say that at the GM's discretion, you might be able to cast stealthily with a Dex, Sleight of Hand versus Perception Detection check. So basically, this will just determine if we can do it before we roll initiative or if we have to wait for initiative. That's pretty much going to be it. So it's a Dex Sleight of Hand, which for us is just straight up Dex. We do not have Sleight of Hand. And we succeeded. Well, we succeeded by 2. So now it's against their Perception Detection. So we need stats for red brands, because we're going to be fighting a fair number of these. So we're looking at Human Bandit. I think Human Bandit is what we're looking for. Hit dice of 1. So they have a perception of 10. Pretty simple. So we will roll a d20 for them. They failed by 1. So we definitely succeeded. They're too focused on Grognan. They don't really notice my little hand gestures and whispering under my tongue. And so now I cast the spell, which requires the arcane lore check. Lore. Success, of course. So that's all good. And now we cast Thunderclap, and we catch all of them in it. And so they have to make a luck strength save. Their luck is 4, and they have no bonus to strength. So it's just they have to roll a 4 or under. We'll roll 4d20, and they all failed. Okay. Remember, they all have 4 HP. So we will roll 1d6 for all of them. Okay. Whew. Could have been better. We had a 50-50 shot there. But yeah, needless to say, their ears are fucking bleeding. And they are quite deaf. And shock and awe achieved. But we're not going to let them go to run back to mommy. So we will roll initiative and charge in. We're going to start with... We'll start with Jabroni's initiative, because that gives us 2 rounds of pretty good initiative. Or he gets a terrible failure. Alright. So they are kind of disoriented, but they're not that slow, and they were kind of itching for a fight anyways, so... they're deaf, but they don't need to hear to try to kill us. So they're gonna swoop in. I wouldn't bother setting up something like this in person, so we don't need to set anything up. But yeah, it is kind of tricky scenario because there's 4 of them. Brognan is out front for sure, and he's definitely, you know, he's got a big axe and he's boisterous. He is kind of the target of their hatred, but I'm going to have at least one. Yeah, I think we'll have one go for Bertrice. So 3 on Grognan then. And he welcomes it. Sort of. And they do get a +2 bonus because they're flanking him pretty heavily. So they're going to roll a +3 against his 14 AC. Miss. Miss. Hit. Okay, and they are using... I don't know if it ever specifies what they're using. Probably just clubs or something. I would imagine just kind of clubs. if it ever specifies. I'm sure it does at some point. Yeah. D6 weapons are pretty much fine, so we'll roll with that. 2 damage to Grognan. Okay, and then the one attacks Bertrice with just a +1 and hits for 4 damage. He doesn't like it, but it is what it is. Also, I needed to use Spellcraft. Okay. Then it's our turn. And Brognan is going to rage. Of course, he's pissed, and he's going to swing. I mean, I probably could have done a morale check right away, but we'll wait till at least one dies before I roll morale. So he's going to swing his new Great Axe. Woo doggy. Yeah, he is cleaving one guy in fucking half. Now, I could go for a major exploit here to keep cleaving, but remember, that does cost me luck. And really, the only way to get luck back is long resting. Chances are, after we do the whole red brand layer, we'll probably do another long rest. So I suppose. Yeah, alright, fuck it. So we will cleave, we'll do a major exploit to just swing all the way around. So, as I've declared before, which is, it is carrying through pretty well. One extra target would just be a luck strength save. The next one, though, makes it a luck strength -2. So we will roll that. -2. Success. Alright. So now I'll just roll damage for each of them. I don't know if I want to roll damage individually for the other two, or one damage roll for all of them. Or you could just say it's 10 damage to all three, but that seems a little much. So we'll roll damage individually. So it's a d12 +1. So the second poor sap takes 5 more damage. I mean, they only have 1 health, so it doesn't matter. They're dead. Yeah, they're all dead. 3 dead in one giant swing of his great axe. And our luck went down, but hey, that's worth it. It's a kind of a big factor of Tales of Argosa being easier than like BXD&D or something. Being able to do these big flashy moves that can potentially kill multiple targets in one big go. I mean, that's a pretty big factor. And there's a lot of things in Tales of Argosa that I think are relatively modernized and make for a more casual and yet more enjoyable experience. Like the being able to do montages for certain things is very nice, and like the artificer getting the troubleshooter ability that he can just come up with an invention to solve a problem, and it's very free form. Now, these are all things that I think are very fun and interesting. And these are all things that you could sort of just incorporate into any RPG, you know, if you wanted to. But here it's codified and it fits in well, and it's just all kind of nice. So, big part of why I like Tales of Argosa quite a bit. All right. So Bertrice has a guy on her. So she could whip out her staff and just club him, and she may as well. She'll attack with 2 hands. That is actually a kill. Well, we knock him out. The other 3 are very much dead, but she hit him over the head with her staff, so we could say that she knocked him out to have one survivor. Alright, well then, combat is over. That was easy. We will do a short rest here. We got 1 success. Do I want to waste a reroll to try to get... We want the spell casting back for sure. Do I want 2 HP back? I don't know. Rerolls are kind of valuable, so I think we'll just keep it as is. Okay, and then Grognan, mostly just to get his rage back. Yeah, fine. Alright, we're good. See it now, as long as we finish combat in like a round or two, and we start initiative with Jabroni, Grognan never has to roll initiative. Now there are other times that you will roll initiative, like if you're doing a rescue, or actually in the gameplay example at the start of the book, they actually have they have a situation where they see some figures up on a roof, and one of the players wants to throw his spear at one right away. And so the GM has him roll an initiative roll to see if he reacts fast enough before the figures disappear. I do think that is kind of fair. Like, anything that would be like very short amount of time, like a very small window of time available to you to do something, I could see an initiative check being rolled. So Grognan does get penalized on that front, that he is kind of big and slow. And oftentimes that would just be rolled up into dexterity, and initiative would just be part of dexterity, but initiative does incorporate intelligence as well, which is why Bertrice's initiative is so good. She thinks quick and she acts pretty quick, whereas Grognan thinks slow and moves slow. You know, so I think it works. Okay. So, we've got this guy unconscious if we wanted to do something with him. They are all wearing grimy scarlet cloaks. So they do kind of have this badge of their little club in these scarlet cloaks. So you could attempt to disguise. The problem is, I feel like it's a pretty small operation here, and they all likely know each other. You know, you got some big barbarian coming in wearing a cloak. It's like, who the fuck are you? You know, you could say like, hey, you know, Glassstaff hired us. We're new. What are we? You know, what needs to be done? Kind of thing. I mean, you could perhaps. It might mention that at some point. I don't think it would work for all three of us. I think that's a little suspicious. But Grognan by himself, walking in, he's kind of charismatic. He could lie his way through this. And yeah, you know, I was just hired. Where should I go? Kind of thing. He could slip in, but at the end of the day, the question you have to ask when you do stuff like that is, what's the end game? You know, what do we get out of that? Usually, what you get out of something like that is a recon. You find out information about how many there are, where they're located, where, you know, the weak spots are, and then at some point he slips out and recaps all that to the others, and then they have more information for launching their assault. And I do think that is potentially valuable. Yeah, it says here, Red Brands recognize characters wearing scarlet cloaks as imposters. However, fast-talking characters might pass themselves off as new recruits, especially if they offer to join the game. So it is possible to kind of to worm our way in. Yeah, okay. Do I want to incorporate that kind of plan? In a group, like if you're playing normally in a group, it's kind of always questionable, because it's like, okay, now we have to follow this one you split the party, you have to follow this one person as they go through this whole thing and do talking and blah blah blah, and the rest of the group just kind of sits there and waits. You know, it's not very interesting. Playing solo, though, I mean, it's not really an issue at all. So I suppose we should. I'm thinking about whittling down their numbers. Like, if we go in there and we bump into a few of them, and Grognon's like, "Hey, you know, I'm new, but there's some trouble down at the Sleeping Giant. Some adventurers are busting things up. We need help." We might be able to draw a few of them out and then ambush them. It's the sort of thing you might want to, like... Like, again, it would be better if he kind of ingratiated himself in. But we don't really have the luxury of time unless we want to bury these bodies. Because if they find the bodies of 4 of their dudes in the street and one of the cloaks is missing, they're probably going to look to the new guy that's wearing, you know, a cloak that they don't recognize. So I think we kind of have to work quickly. So Grognon's going to put on the cloak, and we're going to quickly kind of leave the bodies there and head up to the manor, because we know that that's where, apparently, where they... I think we know that the Red Brands operate out of the manor. Red Brands who are captured, persuaded, or charmed by the characters can impart useful information. Characters can easily convince the town master to keep an eye on any prisoners they capture for at least a few days. If the characters kill the ruffians, the town master expresses his fear of retaliation. Well, we're not going to give him an option. Do we want to wait to, like, wake this guy up and ask him? Yeah, I suppose we would. Yeah, I suppose we would. So we would kind of tie him to, like, a nearby post or something and slap him until he wakes up. I imagine he's going to fold pretty easily, especially because he saw Grognon cleave 3 men in one swing. So, I mean, yeah, I could make a roll here, but I don't know. I think it's just because, like, you know, I've been DMing from my family, and they just never capture anybody. They never get any amount of intel ever. So I feel like if they ever did capture any enemy ever and ask them questions, be like, yes, okay, here you go. Here's the info. Thank God. I feel like I've just kind of gotten into that mentality. So we know that the leader of the Red Brands is a human wizard known as Glass Staff, so named because his magic staff is made of glass. So we know there's a wizard operating things, so we definitely want to get in there and get his spell book. There's a mysterious figure called the Spider who hired the Red Brands to frighten off adventurers and intimidate the locals for reasons unknown. The Spider sent bugbears to reinforce the Red Brands and provide extra muscle. Okay, so this Spider figure now is mentioned twice here. They hired the goblins to capture Gundren, and now hired Red Brands, the bandits, to frighten off adventurers and intimidate locals here in town. So this spider figure is all over the place and very mysterious. He does warn us that the lower part of the complex is guarded by a hideous eye monster. And they have a handful of captives in a holding area near the old crypts, which are guarded by skeletons. That's pretty much all he can tell us. And until we get in there to see for ourselves, it's kind of hard for him to provide concrete instructions and directions. I mean, you could, like, have him draw a map for you, but I don't think we need to go that far. So, I guess we could just leave him tied up to this post. We could execute him. Not very heroic. Also, I didn't get XP for that fight. That wasn't much of a fight, so we'll just go with 1 XP. Do we want to execute him, or... No, I mean, I guess we'll take him to the Town Master's Hall. And just tell him that we captured one of these bandits, and he was up to no good. And keep him locked up here for now. We won't mention that we cleaved 3 men in the street. Town Master will find out about that pretty soon anyways. We won't mention it. Okay, so we know that we want to go to the manor. The deserted manor grounds have plenty of tracks leading to a stone staircase just off the empty ruin of a large kitchen. At the bottom of the stairs stands an unlocked door with a cellar beyond. Okay, and he did tell us... Yeah, he did tell us about this secret entrance that they have. So we know to go down into the cellar. The door opens onto a 5-foot wide landing that is 15 feet above a large cellar, with stone steps descending to the floor and 2 short flights. Another door stands beneath the stairs to the north. A large stone cistern occupies the west part of the room, whose walls are lined with kegs and barrels. Okay, so let's bring up our map here. Alright. So we are, yeah, I mean, we're gonna have Bertrice and Jabroni wait outside of this cellar, you know, up the stairs or something like that. And they've got their ranged weapons ready. They know that if anybody but Grognan comes through that door, they're gonna blast. Grognan is gonna go down the cellar himself because he's wearing the cloak, and he's gonna try. You know, he doesn't have his weapon out, and he's gonna try this ploy of convincing them that there's trouble down at the sleeping giant to try and draw some of them out. The Red Brands want to keep their base of operations hidden, so other than the barrels filled with fresh provisions, nothing in the cellar gives away their presence. Barrels contain salted pork and beef, flour, sugar, apples, and ale. And we could, you know, we could price all that out and sell it if we wanted. Kind of belongs to the town, though, I imagine. So there's a cistern here, a rectangular reservoir clean and filled with cold, fresh water. 10 feet deep with a rim 2 feet higher than the surrounding floor. Drain pipes from the roof of the manor fill the cistern with water. A waterproof satchel hangs from a submerged rope attached to the south wall of the cistern about 2 feet below the water surface. The satchel can't be seen from above the water, but a character can probe the cistern with a pole or jump in to find it. The satchel contains some valuable items. It's one of those things that's just like, really, who is finding this shit? Who is jumping in a cistern or something to try and find stuff? It just seems so dumb. And in this satchel is a potion of healing, potion of invisibility, 50 gold, and a clean set of ordinary travel clothing. This is Glassstaff's emergency kit. I mean, I guess it's like a smart location, I suppose, but yeah, for players, I can't imagine many are going to find stuff like that. I'd love to just know statistics on a lot of these modules, especially Lost Mine of Phandelver. It is an insanely popular one that's probably been run thousands of times. I'd love to know a statistic of what percentage of parties find this satchel. It's a thing, you know, it's a thing they can do very easily with video games nowadays. You know, they always have just gobs of statistics about every little thing that they track. But a lot harder with a tabletop game. So I'd be curious, but we'll never know. So the bandits in area R2 notice if the characters make a lot of noise here. They burst into the room, getting surprised if the characters don't know they're coming. If the bandits fight in the area and 2 are defeated, the last bandit might reveal the secret door by fleeing in that direction. So we basically, yeah, we see a door to the north, and we see this door to the west. We don't see this secret door yet. We'd have to poke around for that. So Grognon's kind of looking around. He doesn't see much, but we know that the red brands are here. So it's either the north door or the western door, but we can probably see light coming from the western door. And maybe even voices and stuff. Like light voices. It says they're resting in there, but that's not really sleeping necessarily. Maybe 1 or 2 of them. But yeah, 3 of them in there. We see a little light on. And so we're going to have to sell this pretty well. So Grognon's going to have to run over, yank the door open, and look like he's in like he's flustered and he's in a hurry and he's like he just ran here. You know, he's got to sell this. Deception, which we didn't take for some reason. And they're immediately gonna like hop up and start grabbing for their weapons, of course, but he's just gotta like be no nonsense and be like, hey, there's trouble down at the Sleeping Giant. Blah, blah, blah. The adventurers are causing trouble. They're knocking up our boys, as they say. Knocking around our boys. And I'm sure they're gonna be like, who the fuck are you? You know, and like, I'm new here. Glassstaff just hired me, but we gotta go now. All right, and that's the lie, and they either buy it or they don't. And as soon as I say that, I'm gonna start moving again. You know, I'm in a hurry and in character, like in the narrative, I'm just hoping that they're gonna follow me, and I don't got time to jibber jabber. But really, I don't want them to like start asking more questions. So that's the plan. And then we're gonna run up I'm gonna run up the stairs. I'm gonna run out through the door, and then as soon as we reach the top of the steps here, leading down to the cellar, these guys are gonna blast whoever comes up behind me, and then I'm gonna whip out my great axe and so on and so forth. That's what we're doing, so it all comes down to the roll, and I don't have a reroll available. So, fingers crossed. You'll notice I didn't give any skills to Jabroni, and, yeah, I don't know. I decided to just differentiate him a little bit more. That he's not quite a player character, so he has no skills. So technically, he doesn't really have any rerolls either, because he has no skills. But I think that's probably fair. So yeah, no one has deception, so it's just up to Grognon's decent charisma, and we'll hope for the best. I have a pretty good odds of this working. So yeah, that's what we do. Okay, so I burst in, I say that, they ask who I am, I say that, blah blah blah, and now we roll charisma. Roll. Great success, baby. Hell yeah. That's good, because I was actually contemplating putting a -2 modifier on the roll, because it is a little kind of ridiculous, especially because I am new and they've never seen me before. But I would have succeeded even with the -2, so it's all good. Okay, so they buy the story for sure, you know. This is something that's relatively plausible to them. They've been causing a lot of trouble in town. They're specifically been hired to harass adventurers, so it's not shocking that a bad scuffle would break out. And they know Glassstaff has been hiring people, so it's not out of this realm, and they never saw us before. So yeah, it's plausible. So, yeah, Grognan runs back up the stairs, and we'll say all three of them follow because, you know, this is what they do. This is what they've been hired to do. They're not gonna chicken out now. And so we get to the top of the stairs, and yeah, Bertrice and Jabroni immediately gonna fire. So I'll have Jabroni fire first. This is an ambush. He probably should have advantage, so I'll give him advantage on the roll. He still managed to miss completely. This is why he's a jabroni. Okay, and then Bertrice can fire. That's better. So that's a kill. Jabroni is just very surprised, and his shot goes horribly wide against the wall, but Bertrice, calm, cool, collected, fires a crossbow straight through his neck, and he drops. And now we will roll initiative. Come on, Jabroni. Fucking hell, you're so shit. Alright, well, technically Grognan hasn't done anything yet. He has not, like, revealed his deception. So, as far as they know, they're just suddenly getting attacked. I don't think this would trigger a morale check just from that ambush. But if two of them had died, or if Grognan had suddenly turned, drawn his weapon or something, then they might. But yeah, they're assuming Grognan is with them, so they're emboldened. So they're going to rush out. And they're going to rush for Jabroni and Bertrice. So I'll roll against each of them. I mean, technically, I think Grognan could intercept. If he wanted to try to intercept. You know, once I flip through the book 100 more times to find the intercept rule. He's not surprised. He's not in melee. He hasn't moved this turn, and an enemy wishes to move within close range. He may attempt to intercept using an initiative check. But if a character attempts to intercept before their first turn in a new combat, check is made a disadvantage. There's no way he's doing any of that shit. So it's just going to happen. So they each get +1 against Jabroni. Miss against Bertrice. Miss. Okay, so they're flustered. A lot's going on, and we're just a little too quick for them. Alright, so now we get to go. And now Grognan gets to pull out his axe and swing at the one on Bertrice, because, you know, they're a pair. So, yeah. So he gets +1 on the roll for... Actually, no, he doesn't, because she doesn't have a melee weapon out. So it's just normal. That is a hit. It is not a kill, though, unfortunately. He rolled very low. I could rage, but again, I feel like I have to declare that beforehand. So even though it says I can declare it as part of an action, I think it has to be before the roll. Needless to say, we grievously injured this guy. Jabroni is going to drop his bow and pull out his battle axe and swing it. So that's just a normal roll. He'll two-hand it. Miss. Of course he does. Okay, and Bertrice will drop her crossbow and whip out her staff. And now she does get a +1. Yeah, that is definitely a kill or a knockout, whatever you want to call it. And that's the round. New initiative. Success, perfect. Grognan will just walk over calmly and swing his great axe at the last guy. Not a kill. No, not a kill. He was uninjured, so he's at half health. I'm going to try to use the momentum of my axe, though, to drag him to the ground, push him to the ground. So we're going to do opposed strength. That's going to be hard to beat. That is a success, yes. So he gets knocked to the ground. And now Jabroni will try and swing his axe again. So +1 from flanking, +2 from prone. It's +3 total. There we go. He decapitates him. Excellent. Good. Now if we can just do that a couple more times, we might be in business. I'm going to take 1 XP for that little fight. You know, it all adds up. Okay. Possibly I could short rest after that, if we want to count that as a significant fight. But I think it goes hand in hand. If you're going to give XP, you got to give the short rest. So, fuck it, we'll give the short rest. Double success. I will recover some hit points and recover some hit points. And Brognan might also recover some hit points. Good. Alright. Again, Tales of Argosa is a pretty nice, generous game if you're scared of something like Shadow Dark or OSE, where things are very lethal, very brutal. I think Tales of Argosa is fairly generous in a lot of aspects, which makes it pretty enjoyable to me, because I think it still maintains some of that old school lethality and sort of tense combat and tense situations without getting overly mired in it. Alright, so we're going to go down now. The odds of us being able to pull that off a second time, pretty slim, and we're going to have to go deeper into the thing. And we've heard about skeletons, and we've heard about some sort of eye monster down here. So we don't know where those are. We don't have a map of the place. It's just a little too much for Grognan to kind of wander around by himself. So we're probably not going to attempt that again unless we see a decent opportunity. So we go back down. We're going to go over to their little barracks room. Oh, hold on. All 3 red brands wear belt pouches holding treasure. First holds 16 silver, 7 gold pieces. Second holds 12 silver, 5 gold pieces. The third holds 20 copper, 11 electrum. And 2 garnets worth 10 gold piece each. Well, that is pretty decent. So an electrum is 5 silver. That's 55 silver. It's not a commonly used currency, I don't think. And I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think it's. I think just change that to like 6 gold and call it a day. So decent little haul there of 18 gold, 28 silver, 2 garnets worth 10 gold pieces each, 20 copper. It's annoying having to manage all this different monetary things. Okay, where's my calculator again? So 18 gold divided by 2.5. Whoops. 7.2. Okay, we'll each take 7, and we'll give 4 to Jabroni. Yeah, it's annoying. So I really should just have one person holding all our money. But when you have to deal with encumbrance for carrying coin, yeah, I don't really want to have one person holding all the money. Then we have we'll leave the copper because I don't care. So 28 silver. Okay, so 11, 11, and 7? Alright, fine. 11, 11, and 7. Okay, and then the 2 garnets we'll grab. Fucking treasure. This module is so... it's so lacking. Alright, I guess we'll change this now to garnets. 10 gold piece each. We have 2 of them. Done. Okay. Do we want to give an XP for all the treasure we just got? Yeah, that's a good question. That is a good question. Not every treasure you get is worthy of XP. Do we count these as... I don't think these are trinkets. A trinket is like... oddball items adventurers sometimes stumble across. About 90% of the items are non-magical. 10% have a minor enchantment. I mean, I guess. Because you have stuff here that's like a fragile black paper fan worth 12 silver. But I guess that one is magical. Oh, here, a painted toy boat in great condition worth 8 copper. And it's not magical. It's not. There's a single child figurine steering the ship. There's space for a second figurine, but it appears to be missing. That's it. It's just like an odd little thing worth 8 copper. That gives you an XP. That seems wild. But then, like, it says you don't get any XP for carry loot A. And carry loot A... I guess it is just money. Like... oh, and a precious stone. So theoretically, you could get carry loot A. And you could get, like, 15 gold and a precious stone worth fucking, like, 100 and some gold. 105 gold or something. That could be carry loot A that you get. And that would not give you an XP. Whereas you could get, like, 60 gold from carry loot B. And that would be worth an XP. I'd probably say no. I think we're going to go with no. It's a little bit too small of a haul. Okay. Yeah, there's not really anything else in here to talk about. So then we either go north or we go... we'd have to find the secret door. I don't think we'd bother to look for the secret door, really. We've never encountered a secret door in our life, so it's not really a thought. And I don't know if the guy mentioned it. Hard to say. So I think we'd probably just go north, which is dangerous. But yeah, Grognan obviously leading the charge. I don't know if there's torches in this room. Thick dust covers the flagstones of this somber hallway. The walls are decorated with faux columns every 10 feet, and the double door at the west end of the hall is sheathed in copper plate, now green with age. A relief carving of a mournful angel adorns the door. I think there wouldn't be lights here, actually. So I think we're going to have to light a torch. And that raises the question of who's carrying the torch. It's probably going to be Jabroni. He's probably going to one-hand his battle axe and unequip his shield. So that he can hold our torch for us. He is designated torchbearer. Because the light crossbow you can fire with one hand, but you have to have two hands to reload it. So Bertrice can walk around with the torch and her crossbow out, but if she shoots it, she has to kind of drop the torch. So. Alright, yeah, so we're going to walk in, Grognan and Jabroni carrying the torch behind him. So in the middle of this hall, there is a pit trap. Hidden under a false floor consisting of loose stone tiles laid atop breakaway timbers. The tiles and timbers collapse under 100 or more pounds of weight. Characters searching the hall for traps can spot the covered pit with a successful DC 15 Wisdom Perception check. Successful check also reveals narrow ledges on the north and south sides of the pit. A creature attempting to skirt the pit using one of these ledges must succeed on a DC 10 Dexterity Acrobatics check. Right. So again, we go back to the question of how do we handle this with Tales of Argosa? Well, the easiest way is just perception. Who's ever in front is rolling perception, and if they fail, they don't notice it and they step right on it. It's the easiest way to do it. It's the most boring way to do it, but it is a very boring trap. So there's not many ways to make this more interesting. And I don't know what I'm flipping through the book for, because that's almost certainly what I'm going to do with it. And how big is this? 20 feet deep. Jesus Christ. There are no spikes at the bottom, though, so this technically, Tales of Argosa counts this as a minor pit trap, which is 1d2 times 10 feet deep, and luck dex save to negate the fall. Or negate the damage from the fall? I think negate the fall, really. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's... Yeah, traps, man. This is technically the first trap of the game. But it says that, yeah, fuck. I hate traps. Because it's like... It just so often can devolve into this thing of just, well, we're searching for traps. I'm searching for traps. Hey, I'm searching for traps. It's like, okay, we get it. That's why I just prefer to always assume that you're always searching for traps. You're always wary of traps. Unless you tell me otherwise, that you're just like running through an area with reckless abandon, which sometimes you might want to do. But if you're moving carefully, I think it's assumed that you're searching for traps. And plenty of games do adjudicate it that way, that you're taking a long time and moving slowly to be careful and search for traps. But then it says here, when a player character triggers a trap, instead of moving straight to the luck save, attack roll, or other effect, inform the player of the nature of the trigger, such as a tripwire tugging at your boot, and then boldly inquire, what do you do? 3 seconds to answer. Do not be drawn into providing any extra information about the trap at this stage. The player has to the count of 3 to respond. If the proffered action makes it easier to avoid the trap, the PC gains a bonus on their luck save or attribute check, perhaps a +2 bonus or advantage. If the described action is neutral, the saver check is rolled as normal. If the action makes the trap significantly harder to avoid, the saver check is rolled with a penalty. I think that's pretty good, and I like that overall. I think that's pretty fun. I'm not sure. Okay, so pit trap hidden under a false floor consisting of loose stone tiles laid atop breakaway timbers. So I think basically that the nature of the trigger would just be like you hear a cracking sound underneath you. And then you'd have 3 seconds. And I think the most common thing would be just like, I leap backwards. And I think that would certainly give you a +2 at least on your roll. But all right, let's assume we're searching for traps, because one, this is a dark and dusty area. They don't move through here much, so there must be something off. So I think that's enough to cue us into searching for something. So we'll just roll a perception with Brognan, and he rolled a success. So he does see this funky looking area of the floor that looks like it's been adjusted. The tiles look loose there. And we also see that there are more solid looking ledges against the wall that don't look like they're made of loose tiles. What's very strange to me is that it doesn't show how wide this pit trap is. It does on the DM map there, I guess. It's 10 feet wide. So we see about a 10-foot by 10-foot section of the floor that looks funky. I think it's probably pretty easy to jump over it. And then, yeah, I think it's probably pretty easy to jump over it. I don't know if there's rules anywhere in Tales of Argosa. Usually, you don't get that much specification about, like, how far you can jump. I know that I could look at Axe and figure that out. Should we? Dare we? I'd love to go to Axe just to find, like, very specific things. Where would that even be under? Boy, oh boy. I'm sure there's a proficiency for jumping. Here you go. Jumping and leaping. Perfect. Maximum height in feet. Yada 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 yada. We want distance. Maximum distance feet an adventurer can jump horizontally is equal to his dex score plus 1d6. That's the max distance in feet. So that's your dex score. Not your modifier or anything. That is your score. So 18 dex is 18 plus 1d6 feet. So that means as long as we have a 9 dex or higher, we can pretty easily jump that. But it also says height and distance jumped are reduced by 1 foot per stone of encumbrance the adventurer is carrying. And you have to have a moving start of at least 20 feet, or your leaping height and jumping distance after encumbrance are halved. Okay, so there are a lot of factors there, obviously. So that means that would I want to do one foot less for every slot you have occupied? Or maybe every 2 slots you have occupied. Because stone. I don't know if that quite works out the same way. So if we go to, like, the thief templates, because they tell you how many stone the starting equipment is. So, like, our cat burglar. Remember that load of shit we could have taken for our cat burglar? That amounted to 7 stone and 5/6. So, around 8 stones. So that means all the cat burglar's jump distance is reduced by 8 feet. And I think that's relatively average, because if you go to, like, the fighter templates, yeah, like the legionary, 10 stone by default. But, you know, a lot of them are around 8, 5, 6, you know, they're in that ballpark. So if we imagine that most characters are going to be weighed down by around 7 to 8 stone, we would be looking at, I don't know, slots we're taking up right now. Grognon's taking up 12. I think that's a little severe. And Axe is very realistic, so maybe I would do every 2 slots you're carrying. Reduces it by 1 feet. If this ever really matters or comes up. So that means that Grognon, his default jump is 10 feet plus 1d6, assuming he gets a running start, which we could. So 10 plus 1d6, but he's weighed down by 6. So he's really, he can jump 4 feet plus 1d6. If we follow Axe rules. I don't know. I can't imagine Tales of Argosa goes into anything about jumping. There is the athletics and acrobatics skills. And acrobatics mentions jumping. Athletics mentions jumping. So, you know, there are skill checks, but it doesn't mention how much you can jump at all. It's not really concerned with that kind of specificity compared to Axe, of course. But I often like specificity when it comes to specific situations. I think it's, well, I mean, I do think it's easy and probably recommended, and most people would just hand wave it and just be like, yeah, if you get a running start, sure, you guys can jump over the 10-foot pit. Whatever, you know. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's like, if I just allow them to jump over the 10-foot pit, what is the max I would allow them to jump over? Eventually, you might need to know that, or you just make an arbitrary decision. And then you bring up the question of, okay, well, what does the athletics skill or the acrobatics skill do for me? How does it benefit me if everyone can just jump over a 10-foot pit? Well, does jumping over a 10-foot pit require a roll or not? Does jumping over a 15-foot pit require a roll or not? Because if I picked, say, athletics or acrobatics because I want to be really good at jumping, I feel like that should factor in. I want that to factor in. Let me go back. An adventurer proficient in acrobatics can add his class level to his dex score to a maximum of 24 for purposes of calculating his leaping height and jumping bonus. Jumping distance. A dex score of 19 to 20 grants a plus 4 bonus. 20. Hmm. Okay. I mean, I guess you could just take that. I mean, you could just literally take that. It's not super exciting, but I would say that if you do have athletics or acrobatics, you can add your level to your dex for the purposes of how far you can jump or high you can jump. Um I mean there still of course would be times for rolls, but I mean I like I said I kind of like having the specific rules for some of these things. So that means that since Grognan has athletics, he can add +2 to his dex. So he'd be at 12 minus 6. So he'd be at 6 plus 1d6. He would need a 4 or higher to jump over the pit. Alternatively, he could skirt alongside, and then he just has to roll a dex, which is like a 45% chance. So really 50-50 or 4. I think he's better off jumping, to be honest. Neither one's great for him getting across this, but yeah. Everyone else should be in pretty good shape with their higher dex scores. Jabroni is carrying 7 slots, so that would be -3. So he'd be at 9 plus 1d6, so he can't fail. So he's across. And then Bertrice is carrying, oh boy, she's carrying 10, so that's -5. So she's actually at 7 plus 1d6. So she also has only a 66% chance. Okay, let's roll for Bertrice first. She needs a 3 or higher on this d6. She got it. All right, so she's across with aplomb. And then Grognan needs a 4 or higher. Yeah, he needs a 4 or higher. He got it. All right. We all made it across the pit trap. Well, technically, we never collapsed the pit trap, so it's still there. We just cleared the questionable area. And Jabroni showed us that it is safe on the other side. He took the first leap. All right, well, that was fun. Thank you, Axe, for being useful yet again. Moving on. So we get up to this big door, double door, sheathed in copper plate, with a relief carving of a mournful angel on it. Very questionable. But we will open it. And we enter into some crypts. 3 large stone sarcophagi stand within this desolate crypt, and 6 skeletons in rusty mail are propped against the walls as if guarding the place. False columns along the walls are carved in the image of spreading oak trees. The double door in the southeast corner is sheathed in tarnished copper plate. The 6 skeletons are animated and under orders to attack any creature that comes within 10 feet of the door leading to Area R5 or the door leading to Area R6. They don't attack a creature wearing the Scarlet Cloak of the Red Brands or that speaks the password Illafarn, the name of an ancient elven nation that once spread across much of the Sword Coast. I don't know how you'd ever figure that out. Does that word even appear anywhere else in this document? No. Well, according to this, it doesn't appear at all, so my search might not be working here. Yeah, I don't... Unless I spelled it wrong. Okay, so we enter into this room, and we see 6 skeletons sort of arrayed around this whole room. Let's make a skeleton real quick. Skeleton. Tokens. Portraits. Undead. Skeletal. Well, probably just a skeleton guard. I'm not picky. Perfect. Perfection. Yeah, let's take that. And we can kind of zoom in a bit. Yeah, get the weapon in there. Something like that is good. We like that. It's nice and easy. Yeah, skeletons. 6 of them. Something like that, I think, is fine. And we can enter into this room. Okay, so we see the skeletons, and they're not moving. Because they only move if we come within 10 feet of those other doors up to the north. But we know that the guy warned us about skeletons guarding the captives. So we know there's captives here, nearby. And these skeletons are probably going to attack us. Yeah, I'm sure if we had actually role-played out the conversation with the guy we captured, we probably would have asked, like, okay, well, how do we get past them? You know, why? How would you get past them or something? You know, why don't they attack you guys? Like, oh, well, you know, if you're wearing the cloaks, blah blah blah. If he even knows that, I mean, I feel like they probably said, like, hey, wear your cloak at all times if you're going around there. But I don't know. Let's assume we forgot to ask. So we got 6 skeletons. As far as abilities are concerned, usually skeletons don't wander, or they don't leave their posts or anything like that. Doesn't actually specify that they won't leave. Very interesting. Very interesting. So we could lead them to the pit trap. And skeletons are pretty dumb. So they're not going to, like, avoid it or anything. There's much has been written, of course, about the presumed intelligence of a skeleton. What will they do? What won't they do? What will they avoid doing? Things like that. Tales of Argosa says that skeletons are immune to piercing damage from arrows, javelins, and similar weapons. So, our ranged weapons will not avail us here. They have no personalities and as such, and are more automaton than creature. And they don't even have an intelligence score listed. So mostly it just comes down to what commands they were given. You know, what command the necromancer that created them gave them to follow. And they will follow that to a letter for centuries, you know, or until they're destroyed. So the command that these skeletons were given was to guard these doors and attack anyone that approaches that is not wearing a scarlet cloak or that utters the word Illifar. And that's basically it. Is just attack anyone that that doesn't fulfill those requirements. Nothing is written then about, like, how far they will travel to attack anyone. But that's why usually in situations in modules where you have skeletons and stuff, or undead of some kind, it often will specify to not leave the room. To prevent skeletons from chasing some guy halfway across the world because he got too close to the door, you know? Their job is to protect those doors. So, even though the module doesn't say it, I think I am going to have to specify that they won't leave the room. But I think you can game that as well, and sort of use that to your advantage. If they'll never leave the room, and if their target leaves the room and they go back to their post, we can theoretically just like throw rocks and stuff at them, you know, from like the doorway. I don't know. Skeletons are weird. Yeah, they're like very basic robots. Like they can't think. They have no thinking capabilities. They just follow the command as stated. I mean, skeletons are good and useful for a necromancer. You know, these things will stick here and guard it for centuries, but I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of vulnerabilities if you whittle it down. But again, that's kind of the whole thing about games like this is coming up with stuff like that and using loopholes and little tricks and things to every advantage you can muster out of it. So I would say, yeah, if the players figure out that, hey, these skeletons are not going to leave the room, we can just throw shit at them and whittle them down from a distance and they won't attack us. It's like, yeah, that's great. Now, there is a downside because there are men in this area here. And it says that if they hear any fighting sounds or something from in this room, they will be alerted that trouble is on the way. So you are kind of giving up an advantage there. But in lieu of figuring out that we'd have to all wear cloaks, which we could do, although we'd have to jump across again, we'll never figure out the Illifarn bullshit, because that's just nonsense. I think we'd probably go with the rock strategy. So, how much damage does a rock do? Well, that's a fine question. I mean, I had a sling, but I got rid of that, didn't I? So, I mean, if a sling does D4, I would say a thrown rock has to do, like, D2. I think D2 is probably fair. Oh, I think I had to do ammo rolls at some point. Jabroni and Bertrice both used their ranged weapons during that first fight. And that's the only fight we did, so yeah. Even though they only shot like once, that does qualify for an ammo roll. Which is, like I said, the ammo roll is favored by if you use a lot of ammo each fight. So, yeah. Okay, he's still well stocked. She's still well stocked. Alright, we're fine. Yeah, I guess D2 would be the damage. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter. We know that the guys... Well, I know that the guys in there are going to be alerted by all these sounds of thrown rocks. There is the question of what if we run out of rocks? But there are loose tiles for the pit, so we can throw loose tiles as well. So I think we have enough ammunition here, and we just stand at the doorway and just throw shit constantly. It's like that scene in Shaun of the Dead. Where they're throwing records. That's pretty much it. D2 damage is not much. But remember, they each only have 4 health. So it shouldn't really take that long and that many throws to kill them all. And I think that's basically it. I think I you know, it's always hard to say when we're playing solo. And what I would do if I were DMing and some players came up with that. I want to say that I would encourage it and allow it, and that would be the end of it. But I don't know. Oftentimes I'm at the table and I'm DMing and I make snap decisions that if I were playing solo and I did it myself, I probably wouldn't be as harsh, but I don't know. I mean, I do think I'm reasonably harsh doing solo stuff, but I also probably have a tendency to toot my own horn, so I don't know. But I'm gonna allow it, and we're gonna allow it. It's gonna happen. It's happened. It's done. We kill all the skeletons. Yeah. Doesn't really even specify what happens if you shoot at them from further away than 10 feet. If they'll, like, come attack you or not. But as I said, they're not going to leave the room. So even if they do approach, we can kind of just hover back. Now that was not a significant fight. Certainly doesn't warrant a short rest. It doesn't earn that. It doesn't earn an XP for being a significant fight either. But I will say I would give an XP just for creative thinking and you know, defeating an encounter with no risk to yourself, I think is worthy of an XP. So I'll give it that. Okay, but as I said, the guys in this next room are going to be quite alerted and ready for us. They heard a lot of sounds of things hitting walls and bones, you know, collapsing and blah, blah, blah. I don't think we're going to search the sarcophagus, the sarcophagi, because they're all closed, and that just is asking for trouble. We are missing this 140 gold piece jeweled bracelet, which would definitely be worth an XP. But it's just not a good idea, because it could just as easily be filled with, like, rock acid or something that shoots out at you, like in The Mummy. So, fuck that. But we do see lights coming from the other side of this door. Or would they douse all the lights? Maybe they would. Yeah, maybe they would. Because they're hoping to just ambush us as we come in. If they hear fighting in Area R4, they take positions against the wall near the door, then try to surprise intruders. The captives are too intimidated to shout warnings or call for help. Okay, so they won't douse the lights. They want people to come in here, and they're going to be lying against the wall here, the western wall, waiting to ambush us as we come in. So they've got readied actions, you know. At least two of them for sure. They've got their clubs or their scimitars or short swords ready. For anyone that walks through that door, they're gonna butcher. How do I want to do that? Let's flip the script for a moment and say that it was the opposite was true. And I was setting up here and I was like, okay. I mean, I already did. No, I already did this. I already did lead them into an ambush. They walked in. I didn't give them a perception check versus my stealth. They just appeared and I fired because I had readied actions as soon as they showed up. And I shot them and they died. And that was it. And I was like, ha ha ha, I am clever and you are not. So I can't now reverse that and walk into an ambush and get a perception check to notice it. I would say that if you are going to like sit there and listen at the door or something like that, and you roll like a great success on your perception, you might hear them breathing on the other side of the door. I might give you that if you said specifically you're waiting and listening at the door. But I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to do that. And I figured I was just going to walk in and accept the consequences of my actions. So yeah, this is just, they get their attacks. And these are going to be with advantage, just like I got advantage. So, sorry, Grognan. You gotta eat it. Alright, so they are flanking me as well as I walk through the door. So that's going to be a total of +2 with advantage. So the first guy misses. The second guy does hit. Okay, so he deals 5 damage. It's a good stab into my side, but I managed to deflect the other one. And now we go into combat. Alright, and we'll have Jabroni roll initiative. Fucking Jabroni! God damn it! Okay, well, then we're in big trouble for Grognan, because he is going to... They're going to repeat it. So the other guy, the guy that wasn't right next to the door, he's going to swoop around. So now they're totally flanking me. They don't get an advantage anymore, but this is 3 attacks, all at +3. Only one of them hit. Okay, thank God. So another D6, another 5 damage. Grognan is getting stabbed all over the place. Oh God, I could never see this happening. I think we figured, probably narratively, we figured that, okay, there's captives here. The skeletons are guarding them. They wouldn't have 3 more guys guarding their captives. That's insane. So we definitely thought the room just had captives in it. This is quite a surprise. Okay. So then it's our turn. I guess they probably would do a minor exploit. One of them will do a minor exploit of throwing sand, pocket sand in my face. So Dex versus Dex. His Dex sucks. He failed by 1. They very much succeeded. So he got stabbed a couple times and got sand thrown in his face. Great. What was I gonna look for? Yeah, okay. If he wanted to drink a potion, that would just be an action. He might. He might do that. He's in the doorway right now. So I should actually... Let's set this up. We didn't make bandits yet. Okay. We'll call this a red brand. I just like to make more tokens. It's a very enjoyable process. We will go... See, now I want to just use their humanoid enemies here, but they don't have anything super suitable. Even that is a fucking android, so I just don't know why they don't have a human bandit as part of their giant token collection. Doesn't that seem ridiculous? Alright, then fuck you. We'll just go to my Baldur's Gate portraits, and we'll use something that looks way too nice for the average bandit. Here we go. We got like Altair here. I think that is, isn't it? Or is that Enzo? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It could, yeah, it's good enough. It works for our bandits. All right, so there yeah, technically he's here, and this is the situation. Okay. So it's Grognan's turn. I mean, he might get to cleaving again, boy. This is what he does best. He's gonna rage. He's gonna rage, and he's going to swing at the guy right in front of him, and hopefully cleave through the rest. So roll that bone. +2. +2. Yes. That is very much a hit and a kill. Again, they have 4 health. Keep that in mind. So he's going to keep cleaving. He's done this move multiple times. He's going to keep doing it. Luck, strength, -2. Great success. Dude, he is the cleaving king. That might become his unique feature where he just gets a bonus on this specific major exploit. Because I think the creator did say that is something you could do, is like focus heavily on one exploit that you... It doesn't have to be a major one. Like, you could focus and you're just really good at disarming, or you're really good at throwing pocket sand. I forgot about pocket sand. Okay, so if I roll a 1 or a 2 on this... Okay, thank God. His rage carried through. Alright, so we'll roll damage for each of the other 2. This is 1d12 +3 because he's raging. And so the first guy, just barely a kill, yep. Okay, just barely a kill, but he nicked their jugulars good enough. Boom, boom. Yeah, that just, yeah. As long as you have a barbarian with a great axe and he's good at rolling on major exploits, you can cleave, boy. He took his lumps as part of it, but I'll count it as a significant fight, because he got hurt quite a bit. So now we will short rest. Excellent. We'd love to see it. Do I want more health back or one more rage back? Probably. I do have these potions I could use. No, we'll take health. Okay, back to 16. And Bertrice is fine, and Jabroni's obviously fine. He never gets touched. Okay, that's it. Alright, so the room is partitioned into 3 areas with iron bars walling off the north and south. Filthy straw lines the floors of these cells, the hinge doors of which are secured by chains and padlocks. A pair of human women are held in the cell to the south, while a human boy is confined to the north. Cell doors feature simple locks requiring thieves' tools and a successful DC 10 dexterity check to pick. Doors can also be wrenched open by brute force with a successful DC 22 strength athletics check. The 3 human commoners imprisoned here are Myrna, Dendrar, and her teenage children, 13-year-old Nars and 18-year-old Nilsa. A couple days ago, the Red Brands murdered her husband, Thel. His corpse can be found in Area R8. The gang was then going to kill his family, but Myrna promised that wealthy relatives in Neverwinter would pay a substantial sum for her and her children's safe return. The Red Brands have kept the Dendrars here while they develop a ransom plan. Dendrars are grateful to the characters for rescuing them, but they can't provide much information about the hideout. All they know is that the boss is a wizard, though they haven't met him and don't know his name, and that he has tall, furry monsters with big ears working for him. Though she has nothing immediately to offer as a reward, Myrna tells the characters that she might know where a valuable heirloom is hidden. When she was a young girl, she and her family fled from the town of Thundertree after undead overran the place. Her family had an herb and alchemy shop inside which is an emerald necklace in a case hidden beneath a section of storage shelves. She never dared return to retrieve it. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I would assume that the ruffians here had a key to the cell, but shockingly, it doesn't mention that at all. Unless only Glassstaff has the key, but that seems kind of... I guess one of the bugbears has a key that's like a master key. I really imagine the key would be here, but if the key is here, why would they go into so much detail about breaking open the locks? Okay, well, so what if we didn't have the key? How do we do this? Well, we don't have thieves' tools because we don't have a thief. So that's not really an option for us. We'd have to wrench them open with brute force. And the problem is, Brogdon's not super strong. We don't have DCs, obviously. We just have checks against your own stats. You can modify that, though. And a DC 22 is pretty high at this level of D&D 5e. So I would say it's a strength check -4, which really means that... So we do here, and we go here, and you'd have to roll a 10 or under. And he failed. But he does have athletic strength, and this would count for that. So I think he actually succeeds. Barely. So he wrenches open the door with the woman and her daughter. And then he'll go over and do the other one. So it's actually a -3 roll. Okay, this one he did fail, but he could re-roll if he wants. Question is, as often comes up, is why can't I just attempt this again? And if the answer to that is, well, you can. you know, there's nothing really preventing you from just attempting it again. If that's the answer, then you have to ask yourself as a DM, why am I making them roll in the first place? And if you don't have a good answer for that, if there isn't really a good reason, or if there isn't a good consequence for failure at all, then there shouldn't be a dice roll here. And even though I've rolled here, because I just was like, yeah, I'll roll here, there really isn't a great reason. Oftentimes, to circumvent something like this, you might instead say that you have to have a certain amount of strength in order to do the task, and it's not a matter of randomness, it's just a matter of can you do it or can you not do it. And I do agree with that often. Sometimes a player fails an attribute check and wants to know if they can try again. The GM decides this on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, a retry is only permitted if the situation changes in a favorable way. On the other hand, a GM might allow retries to break down a door, reasoning that the door grows weaker each time. Now, I would say, if we put our heads together, we would say, okay, we're all going to try now to wrench open this door, and then we'll turn this into a group check. In which case, I'd say, okay, you know, that makes more sense. Or if you were using a crowbar now, we didn't buy a crowbar. I specifically neglected that. This would be a perfect use case for a crowbar. I mean, I could perhaps use one of their, like, short swords. Even though, I don't care if it breaks. I just want to use it to get some leverage. You could maybe make that argument. But I think turning this into a group check is reasonable. And I'm just going to go ahead and make it a flat strength group check in this case. So, athletics does count, so I'll give Grognan a +1. He's the most likely to succeed here. And he got a great success, which is good. So now, as long as one of them succeeds on a flat strength check, there we go. As a group effort, oh yeah. We put our backs into it and we rescue the young boy, and they are reunited. Excellent. I'm giving myself another XP for that. For rescuing innocent people. The book specifically mentions that, which I like. Good. Now, the problem is, if they want to leave, they either have to go all the way out through the rest of the cave that we haven't been to, which is bad, or they have to somehow get across this pit trap, which is mostly visible now, because we took most of the loose tiles off. The young boy probably can just walk across the timbers. Although I don't know if he'd want to risk it. Because we don't know how weak they are. We don't know in our heads that it's a 100-pound weight limit. We just know that it's meant to be a pit trap. So I don't know if we'd make him risk it. I think probably the easiest way to do this, instead of just making them sit here and wait, probably we would have them use the ledges on the side, and we would tie a rope around their waist. And it's a little time consuming, probably would take like 5 minutes or something. But that way, if they did slip, you know, they'd slip like 5 feet. And it would be scary, but we'd have them on the rope, you know, and 3 of us holding the rope, like they're not going to fall. So that's the safest way to do it. And then they untie the rope on the other side, throw it across, and we do it again. Yeah, like I said, it takes like 5 minutes or so, but we'd get them across safely, and then they could just leave. So we'll do that, and I'm not going to do any rolls or anything because it doesn't really matter. That would be the safest way to do it. All right, so we get them out, and we're all good, and they're overjoyed. Blah blah blah. All right, I'm going to leave it off here. We've done well. I think we've done well for ourselves. We've been relatively smart about this. We've cleared out plenty of stuff. Again, like I can't really... If you've never actually played this with 5th edition D&D, or with like sort of a more combat-oriented kind of superhero-ish system, because I did this with Shadow the Weird Wizard, which is very much like 5th edition. It's very power-heavy, very combat-heavy. If you've never experienced that, this is drastically different. You know, going through this with like a party of 5 people, and you have like a cleric in there, and you have a wizard and stuff, and you're just kind of killing everything, and you're doing these like almost like board game kind of combats through here. And if you get roughed up a little bit, it's like, yeah, all right, I got healing, it's fine. Yeah, we're gonna keep going. Like, there's very little cleverness required, I would say, playing this through normally, which is not shocking. You know, like I said, it's a starter set. It's designed to mostly just teach people the rules and sort of the general concepts of a tabletop RPG. But yeah, this is drastically different, and I would say drastically better, but that's going to be subjective. You know, that's going to be based on your tastes. Plenty of people are not going to like how easy it could be to die here, or how meticulous you have to be, or, you know, the non-board gameness of it, the non-tacticalness of combat or something like that. But I don't know. I think it's pretty great. And this all kind of almost encourages me to maybe run Lost Mine of Phandelver again sometime in the future, using probably Tales of Argosa or something, because I do think it has kind of some merit here. There are some fun concepts here, especially for like newer players. I think, yeah, like if you started them with this in Tales of Argosa or Shadow Dark or something, I think they will become drastically different gamers compared to if you started with 5th edition D&D. Not saying better, but yeah, better. Anyways, my name is Mang. This has been solo role manging Phandelver and below with Tales of Argosa. And I'll see you fine folks in the next part.